So this presentation is on how to change the world, which I think is something universal. I think everybody would like to change something. And sometimes it's hard to know where to start or what to do. So this is the easy way to change the world.
And for people who are listening to the audio only portion on their phones, please follow along with the PDF briefing that we emailed you this morning. A bird call sound will emit as we change each slide to alert you to go to the next page.
Like so. So what we're going to cover today, we are going to talk about the Combined Federal Campaign, also known as the CFC. We're going to give you a brief introduction, a brief history, and then we're going to go into personal applications. What does it mean? What can it mean for you personally? And then we're going to talk about the actual how-tos, what website to go to, what buttons to press, what to fill in, when to click enter, etc. And at the very end, we're going to have some contact information for you, and we'll give you a chance to ask questions. Next slide. What is the CFC? What is the Combined Federal Campaign? So we have the federal employees. We've got documentation of fundraising going back to the 40s. It was kind of a mess. Anybody could come in anytime and conduct a fundraiser any way they wanted. So there was no process for vetting who was legit and who wasn't. There was no standardization of quotas. In some cases, supervisors were pressuring their employees to donate. A lot of times, employees would just donate whatever pocket change they had, so the results were pretty low. Not a lot of money was being earned. So employees were not happy, charities were not happy. In the 50s, after studying all of this, they changed the way they did it. And so they did three things. They established eligibility standards. So if you want to be a charity trying to get money from the federal government, here are the eligibility criteria you must meet. So they did that, and they established a list. So as a federal employee, you now have access to a list of who's legit, who can be on, you can give to. I mean, you can give to anybody, but who the good ones are, right? Who have been vetted. And then it also established guidelines for conducting a campaign, what you can and cannot do when you're trying to raise money. In the 60s, they actually started combining them into times of year. So they started with 6 times per year, and nobody can solicit at any other time. And that was a huge game changer. Contributions went up almost 125%. So employees were happy, fundraisers were happy. And so in the 70s, they said, or President Nixon said, that's it. Combined Federal Campaign is it. It's the only game in town for raising money from federal employees. So now it is the world's largest and most successful workplace campaign. So good time to be in the federal service. There are tens of thousands of charitable organizations for you to choose from, a lot of variety. And the CFC raises millions of dollars each year, so very successful. Last year, just in Northern California alone, we raised almost $1.5 million. In Yosemite, we raised almost $5,000, which is behind Sequoia, but ahead of Death Valley, for those of you keeping track. The CFC focuses on health and human services. So in the 80s, there was a case brought before the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled no political parties, no political fundraising, no like legal defense funds, anything like that. So it's specifically health and human services. It is employee focused. So instead of you having to go out into the great wide world, do all your own research, hunt down these charities, it all comes to you. And all of the improvements that have been implemented over the decades have had that specific focus, employee focus, to make it as easy as possible for us. And then lastly, it is the only authorized solicitation which applies to us. So for example, if you've ever been involved in the daily report, we are not allowed to put in fundraising things like the daycare, or there's a charter school, or somebody's house burned down, let's do the GoFundMe account. So we cannot put those things in the daily report. And if you ever wondered why, that's why. So we're only allowed to, or the only campaign that's allowed to solicit is the CFC. Key points.
So everyone on this call should be in the 22% tax bracket. That means if you donate $100, you can get a $100 tax deduction when you file your income tax. This will lower your adjusted gross income by $100. It saves you $22 in federal income tax, another $8 in California state income tax. So that means that you can give a charity $100 and only cost you $70. Also, all the charities in CFC are certified annually as meeting all the requirements of the Internal Revenue Service to qualify as a nonprofit. Also, CFC keeps all your documentation for taxes, keeps all your receipts, and prepares a statement for you at tax time. Also, at tax time, you can retrieve your own OPM form 1654, which is a donation form, online. And if you make your deductions by payroll, you can use a copy of your final pay slip for the year for your taxes. And you don't have to worry about keeping any documentation. Next.
So lots of pros and cons, or pros rather. Personal, making it personal for you. My personal story. When I was a kid growing up, I would see these commercials on TV that you could feed a starving child for $1 a day. And that really struck home with me. I saw those commercials a lot as a kid, and there wasn't anything I could really do about it. And so as an adult, when I joined the Navy, and I got a steady paycheck, and I found out about the CFC, I went back to that childhood dream of $1 a day, and I told the coordinator I wanted to donate $1 a day. So we did the math and figured out how much per paycheck that was going to be for payroll deductions. And for my birthday, which happened to fall in the campaign in November, I donated $1 a day to African Children's Haven. So there were a whole bunch of charities I went through, and I found the one that I liked, the way they operated, how they're spending their money, how they're approaching the program, and sent them $1 a day. And I liked it so much that the following year on my birthday, again, I added the International Red Cross Disaster Relief. So now I can say that every year for my birthday, I help to end world hunger and human suffering. So that's my story. Heroes past and present. Quentin is my partner, the CFC coordinator. So if you're in El Portal or you see him around, you have CFC questions, you can ask him. His grandfather and stepfather both died of cancer. And in both cases, it was painful and prolonged. So that is a cause that's near and dear to his heart. So Quentin donates to charities that research cures for cancer. Nicole grew up in a rural area, and her family would rescue and rehabilitate and find homes for animals. And it's something that she was really involved with, felt very strongly about. When she moved to Yosemite, she didn't have the time or the resources to be able to do that directly. And so Nicole donates to the ASPCA, and that's the way she does it. And Jeff?
So during 20 years in the Air Force, I was stationed all over the world, and everywhere I went, they had a USO. And the USO, even today, represents a friendly face and a little bit of home to thousands of GIs every single day. So that was my charity.
So those are the heroes past and present. Who are the heroes of the future? Do you see your name up here? I tried to predict who was going to be in on the conference. So some of the people we asked to answer a brief questionnaire. And so for those who did that, here's what we found for you.
So Sierra wanted to change the world, and her passion was conservation. And there's a charity in the CFC called the International Conservation, and that's all they do. Alex is into climbing. There is a charity in CFC that provides climbing for handicapped and disabled people. Heather wanted to end COVID-19. And there's an organization in CFC that is the world leader in, well, the CDC. Cindy's passionate about wildlife, and wildlife has probably more charities in CFC than anything else. There are lots from which to choose. There's even one, remarkably, in Texas. Kate is passionate about birds, and there are a number of charities in CFC dedicated to birds, including the National Aviary. Sharon was passionate about healthcare, and she's also from San Jose. So we looked, and sure enough, there's one in San Jose that's dedicated to healthcare, nonprofit. Eric was looking for unbiased information organizations. And there are several. Wikipedia is one of my favorites. NPR is another one. Kira is from Santa Cruz. Now, do you think there's a CFC organization from Santa Cruz? Yes, there is.
So now that we've given you some ideas to get your imagination going, let's talk about what buttons to press and when and where to go and how. So go to cfcgiving.opm.gov or do an internet search for a combined federal campaign. You will need to create an account and a password. So that's where you do that. First step. Find a charity. Here's a button. Click on Find a Charity. Search parameters. So you can search by categories. We've got human services, science and technology, civil rights, arts, culture, and humanities. Or you can search by location. So if you want to narrow it down to zones, it's got the Northern California zone. Or you can put in a city or state. If you do it by location, make sure on the results page that you filter by city, because otherwise it'll filter by whoever contributed last or whatever, alphabetical or whatever. So if you're doing by location, make sure you categorize by location, by city. This is one of my favorite features. I talked earlier about African Children's Haven. One of the things that I was looking for was a low AFR, and that stands for administrative and fundraising expense rate. So I specifically, because I was jaded, I was burnt out. I've seen so many charities that spend half their budget on printer paper and lunch for the secretaries and whatnot. So that's a pet peeve of mine. So I chose African Children's Haven because it had a very low APR. I think the AFR was like 2%. I've heard the argument that some charities, just by definition, by the way they operate, are gonna have a higher AFR. For example, hospitals, if they need to buy a new wing or new equipment, they're gonna have a higher AFR. So that is an argument, but it's something to consider, and it's a cool feature. Once you have found one you like, you can click on the add button. Before you do that though, I wanted to show you, this is the one thing. So it's got the basic information. It's got contacts, it's got a one-sentence description of what they do. For me, you may know this about me, I like more information. So if there's a charity I'm interested in, I will take that URL, plug it into another tab, and go to that page's website. In particular with this one, I thought Rainforest was cool. I clicked on it. It said, we fight climate change by training indigenous to defend their forest home. I'm like, really? how do you do that? So I went to their website, and they supply legal and technical support. They support technical experts, indigenous experts, and then they provide, this is interesting, they provide equipment like smartphones, drones, and satellite technology to indigenous to use. So that's a very unique approach, and that's not on the CFC website. So if there's a charity you're thinking of contributing to, you might want to take the extra step of going to that charity's website and getting more information from them. Then you go back and you add it to your cart. How easy is that? You get a shopping cart, online shopping. So that's what it is and how you can make it work for you. And part 4, we're going to look at resources and questions. So if you're looking for more information, you can go to this web address. So that's not the donating one, that's information. If you still have questions, you can ask Quentin or me, right, Quentin? His mic is muted, but I know he just said yes. And are there, at this point, based on what we've said so far, any questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank you for putting this together, because I've just vaguely known about this program. You know, I see it every year around Christmas time or thereabouts, and yeah, you just made it real. Like, I see it's relevant to me now. So thanks for doing this. This is not the sort of thing I would have necessarily investigated on my own. I'll be honest, I would have never investigated on my own. So it's awesome you guys put this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have many, but I probably won't think of them until I get on the website and actually start to look at it. But cool. I'll email you.
yeah, absolutely. So that wraps up most of our presentation. We just want to say one more time that this is how you can change the world the easy way. Guaranteed. And we have a surprise. So this is a song that we heard that we thought was relevant to changing the world. And it's called You Can Count on Me. If you ever find yourself stuck in the middle of the sea, I'll sail the world to find you. If you ever find yourself
Lost in the dark and you can't see,
I'll be the one to guide you. I never remain alone when we're called to help our friends in need. You can count on me. 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know when I need it, I can count on you. 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, ooh, yeah. You always have my shoulder when you cry. I'm never let go, never say goodbye. You can count on me like 1, 2, 3, I'll be there. And I know if I need it, I can count on you. Like 4, 3, 2, you'll be there. 'Cause that's what friends are supposed to do, oh yeah. Ooh, ooh, yeah. You can count Very
done.
concludes our presentation. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.